Hello, everybody, and welcome. Happy St. Patrick's Day. My name is Ryan, and welcome to Central Park. We know that getting to Central Park is still pretty difficult for a lot of people, so we want to continue bringing the park to you through virtual tours that are about 45 minutes and held on select Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, as well as our shorter, more informal 15-minute weekly walks. Thank you for joining us for a weekly walk of Turtle Pond today. We're going to be together for about 15 minutes, and just about all the photos you're going to see were taken by myself over the past week here in Central Park, with the exception of just a few that were accessed from public archives like the Museum of the City of New York and the Library of Congress. Now, we here at the Central Park Conservancy are the group that helped to keep Central Park looking clean and green. Our mission here is to preserve and celebrate Central Park as a sanctuary from the pace and pressures of city life, enhancing the enjoyment and well-being of all. Today, we're going to be exploring around a pretty fun area. Before we jump into our tour, though, just a little bit of housekeeping. We're using Zoom, so if you want to say hello, or if you want to say hello, please use the chat feature. If you want to let us know where you're joining us from, or keep an eye on that chat box, and you can see upcoming links for future programs and fun little articles that my colleagues will share. If you do have any questions, use the Q&A feature, and my colleagues Ian and Jose are on the back end answering any questions you might have. Last thing you'll see pop up are going to be some visitor center polls. I'm going to launch one of those simple polls right now, which is one you've probably seen before. Have you visited Turtle Pond, or have you visited any areas here in Central Park? The area we're visiting today can be a little bit hidden, but it is a pretty popular area because of some of the things around it. We'll see a few of those things as we explore the Turtle Pond landscape today. Now, a lot of people may have visited Turtle Pond, but a lot of people may not have realized Turtle Pond's the newest body of water that has found its way into Central Park. It came around 1937, so it's not even 100 years old yet. We'll talk a little bit about how it came to be and also how it got the name Turtle Pond, because it actually wasn't always called Turtle Pond. So we're going to begin our walk today on 79th Street and 5th Avenue, wrapping around Turtle Pond, which is really tucked in between about 78th and 81st Street, nearest Belvedere Castle in the Great Lawn. Beginning our walk on a nice sunny day on 79th Street and 5th Avenue, we're going to enter the park at Miners Gate, walking into, again, a nice sunny day. Still winter, but we have a lot of the spring essence in the air. And as we walk in the park, we'll see a little bit of color from the lush green shrubs and plantings around the area. But if we take a closer look, we can actually see some color existing in the winter in the form of these plants, which are known as snowdrops. Snowdrops start off as a more rounded snowdrop looking piece before eventually opening up to these very beautiful, nice white and green little flowers, adding a little bit of color to the spring season, or rather the winter season, which is starting to transition into spring. Only about 4 days away till spring. As we continue walking down, we see something that I really like to see in the park: water fountains. Two different types though. The one on the right is a little different, and if we come take a closer look, we can see why. The one on the right has a little attachment on the back of it. It has this little kind of dustpan piece and this little sort of fountain area. That little dustpan piece actually lifts up and allows you to empty out any water or debris that's in there, while that other little spout area would allow you to fill it when the water's operational. But who could utilize the water that low to the ground, you may be asking? The answer is our four-legged friends. These are part of a series of dog drinking water fountains throughout Central Park that allow both humans and canines to rehydrate as they're exploring through the park. This picture showing one of those fountains off back in 2016 and coming from the Central Park Conservancy's photo archives, as we can see a couple runners as well as a schnauzer hydrating after enjoying the beauty of the park. As we continue along, we'll notice the other infrastructure of area, like the benches around this entranceway. And we can find something on the benches lining this area. What we're seeing are books. Books of all different genres are lining the benches over here as we see a little public pop-up library occurring, allowing people to come enjoy the beauty of this area and read a little book while you're enjoying the beauty of the park. Fun little activity that we can see over here near Miners Gate. And as we continue walking along, we're going to already see so much in this little section as we make our way to Turtle Pond. Continuing down the path, we can start enjoying the color of the park. On the right-hand side, we're going to pass by some beautiful blooming trees. These are going to be witch hazel. And witch hazel is going to be another great example of that, of spring being right around the corner. Coming up close, we can see the beautiful petal-like colors that are the petal that come from this witch hazel, which create a beautiful yellow confetti-like almost aesthetic, with the Metropolitan just peeking in from behind. Really adds a lot of color and whimsy to our day as we're walking around. But a very fun tree or shrub to see as we enter the park. And as we continue down, we're going to pass by another magnificent tree, not so colorful, but very tall, this beautiful large American sycamore, which is casting a sort of ghostly white contrast similar to that other tall stone structure we're going to see in just a little bit. We're going to continue through Gray Whack or Gray Wacky Arch, and we're going to get a nice little view from inside, seeing that spade type exit area, as well as the nice decoration, utilizing red brick and Milwaukee yellow brick on the top ceiling here. Really cool design that transports us a little bit closer to Turtle Pond. And as we walk over, we can take notice of the sign just here on the right. It's important to remember that Central Park is always under really restoration, improvement, and construction. There's always things that are going to be fixed up. And just because we see a little area like this without a lot going on, doesn't mean that there's not a lot of work that was put into there. We might have a lot of newly planted flowers that are going to be blooming in just a couple weeks. So all the more reason to respect some of these smaller areas, even if it seems like nothing's going on. And as we walk a little bit up, we can see just how much is actually going on in this area with this very beautiful piece. This is not a miniature version of the Washington Monument, which can be found down in Washington, D.C. This actually predates it by quite some time, and if anything, could have been used as inspiration for a piece like the Washington Monument. This is Cleopatra's Needle, otherwise known as the obelisk, and its history is just as long as the piece itself is. We're only going to just really scratch the surface here, but if you do want to learn more about the obelisk, you can find more information on our website, centralparknyc.org/obelisk. But this piece was originally erected in Egypt, in Heliopolis, in 1600 BC. It would eventually fall under the control of Alexander the Great and be erected in his community, Alexandria, around 12 BC. And it eventually would be gifted by the Khedive of Egypt to New York City in the late 1880s, having been financed by William H. Vanderbilt and finding its way here to Central Park, coming a long way from Egypt. Here's a photo that comes from the Library of Congress and shows this obelisk before it was transferred to New York over in Egypt. It made a long journey by both boat and newly created train track, created just for the purpose of transporting the obelisk, to its new resting place here in Central Park, finding its home here erected in February 22nd, 1881. This photo coming from the Museum of the City of New York and showing the obelisk in Central Park, a fixture that's been here for quite some time. And of course, a really beautiful piece to see with its ancient hieroglyphic carvings noticed on all sides. Even some sides have been worn down and weathered a little bit, but really a beautiful ancient piece of history that exists here, and one that's really fun to see just cast out the sun's rays, completely blocking it on this very open blue sky day. But a really beautiful piece that again has a lot of history. We're going to exit this area now and start making our way to Turtle Pond, the main attraction we came to see. And as we come around the path, we're going to make our way up to the eastern shore of Turtle Pond. And as we come up here, we can see this little stone plaza area. If you've taken our weekly walk in the past with Brendan around Turtle Pond, you may have learned a little secret about the stones that surround this area. The secret is that this actually forms a mosaic image when viewed from above. The image that's created is that of a turtle. Very appropriate since we're here at Turtle Pond. I am actually going to share that poll that we launched a little bit earlier, and we can see that a majority of people have visited Turtle Pond before. Maybe you knew about this, or maybe you didn't. Hopefully, even if you visited Turtle Pond before, you're going to see something new or learn about something new. And for those who have not visited before, we're happy to take you around for your first time in Turtle Pond. As we do come closer to the water, We can see that there aren't any turtles hanging out right now. This is a spot where we typically can come a little bit closer and usually get a view of turtles, but unfortunately that's not going to be the case. I actually do want to launch a second poll though on that subject. Where did the turtles go? Where do turtles go specifically in winter? So we have a kind of little comical answer to here, but I'll let everybody vote in that, and we'll enjoy the view we can see from this edge line. We aren't going to see turtles right now, but we are going to see some other types of visitors like Canada geese, which are utilizing Turtle Pond in high numbers right now. And as we continue around the pond, we're certainly going to see more of them. Making our way up towards the Great Lawn area. We're coming up and looking over to our left, looking at this little lawn that separates Turtle Pond from the Great Lawn. And we can see Belvedere Castle just in the distance, where we're going to be going to end our walk. If you've joined us on past weekly walks, you may have joined us for a Great Lawn weekly walk, and you may have learned that the Great Lawn used to actually be the receiving reservoir for the Croton Aqueduct system. Eventually, this was decommissioned, and the Great Lawn was filled in around the 1930s. This is actually how Turtle Pond comes to exist. Once the Great Lawn was filled in, a small jagged pond remained left over. This was around 1937, and that small pond was named Belvedere Lake. Having kept that name for quite some time, Turtle Pond did not receive the name Turtle Pond until 1987, when Park Commissioner Henry J. Stern renamed the pond to help fit in more with the population that's utilizing the pond, aka turtles. So it wasn't until only a few decades ago that we really see Turtle Pond getting its name Turtle Pond, before that being known as Belvedere Lake. And Belvedere Lake, or Turtle Pond, today is being used by a lot of geese who are taking turns dumping between the Great Lawn and Turtle Pond. And as we're walking by the Great Lawn, we had the luxury of seeing all of these birds fly right over us. Luckily, we weren't directly underneath them, but it was really cool to see them start making this flying V right as we're walking by, flying over into the sun, right over to Turtle Pond, where we're going to go get a better view of and see where these geese have landed. But a really cool sight to see. It's always like we see geese on the ground and never really see them doing too much in motion. So this was a fun treat. And as we walk along, we're going to come to one of the best spots to see wildlife around Turtle Pond. And that's going to be this nature blind located just on the east side of the Delacorte Theater. And making our way over to this somewhat lesser visited area will give us a real treat of different perspectives of the water, being as close as we can get to it, looking over on some of the inhabitants, which are, of course, typically a lot of turtles. We'll see painted turtles here, musk turtles, cooters, diamondback terrapins, snapping turtles, and red-eared sliders, the last of which is not a native turtle, but is the highest populated turtle here. And they came largely from pet store turtles being released, which is something you should never do. Never release a pet in a park, but that's how many of these turtles got here. Today, though, of course, we're going to see a lot of geese over here, but in the coming weeks, we're going to see more turtles waking up and coming out. And on that subject, we can share our poll. And I see just about everybody saying they stay here, which is correct. Some turtles would take a vacation, I'm sure, if they could, but having that big heavy baggage or shell means they're probably going to stay around. What turtles are doing during the winter time is something called brewmation, basically hibernation for turtles. They're going to dig down in the mud, bury there, and take a little nap for a while. They're going to actually be able to survive under a frozen body of water, taking in oxygen from dissolved oxygen in the water through their tails for about 2 months before really needing to come up or do anything. So they have a nice little slumber party underneath the water while we're all enjoying the freezing cold above water. But really cool to think about that all of these turtles are really just on the bottom right now, and in a few weeks they'll start coming up saying hello to us. Today, again, a lot of geese, though, that we can see, but we can enjoy the beauty of this nature blind. And what a nature blind is really just an area that's just that, blinding the wildlife's view of us, allowing us to get as close as we can to wildlife without them really seeing us so we don't disturb them. The way that these are angled, wildlife sitting lower than this doesn't really see us standing right here, allowing us to see intimate moments of wildlife as well as enjoy beautiful backdrops like this one of Belvedere Castle. And we're actually going to start making our way up to the Belvedere Castle Plaza to enjoy the most expansive view we can get of Turtle Pond. So as we exit this blind area, we're going to wrap around the Delacorte Theater, coming just up towards the Shakespeare Garden section. So as we travel up this path, we're hearing something. We look over to the tree on our right, we hear this tapping. And as we look a little bit closer, we can actually see something up there. We look up in the tree, right in the middle of that red dot, we can see a fun little bird that came to say hello. This little bird being a Downy Woodpecker. Downy Woodpecker, one of the many very cute little woodpeckers we'll see here in Central Park, sporting a nice black and white coat, was knocking on this tree, almost calling for our attention. Really fun to see this little visitor as we come, and a reminder that we're going to see a lot of birds coming into Central Park as spring migration occurs. Seeing almost 270 different species of birds kind of passing through this Central Park area, adding a lot of fun to our walks through the park. And as we're exiting this area, we have the joy in seeing that we've attracted a crowd. A crowd is gathered to enjoy the observation that we've spotted. I always think it's really fun and really cool to see something special here in Central Park, but there's something really extraordinary about getting to share this experience with others. So we can leave here marveling in the joy that we've just improved about a dozen people's park experience by showing them something they may not have noticed. Really fun to enjoy as we walk through the park, sharing the experience with everybody. And as we continue up, we'll make our way to our ending point for this walk, coming up to the Belvedere Plaza Castle. But before we get up there, let's reminisce on what this area looked like when we first took a weekly walk through here back in about June of 2020. About 8 months ago, we can see, of course, a lot more green color booming everywhere. As we snap back to present, winter, almost springtime, we're going to see what green plants remain, but of course see a much bare Shakespeare Garden. But that's going to change in the few weeks as we approach spring and start seeing things blooming and budding all over the park. Continuing up the stairs, we'll come to our destination of Belvedere Castle to get a final view, admiring that beautiful tower that was recently put up in the 2019 construction and restoration of Belvedere Castle. And as we come up, walking up these enchanting staircases, we'll come up to the main attraction of Belvedere Castle's Plaza. Belvedere Castle, of course, another thing, just like the obelisk, which has an immense amount of history. While we don't have time to talk a lot about it right now, we do have plenty of other tours like Belvedere Beautiful View, a 45-minute virtual tour that'll give you a lot of information on Belvedere Castle and the surrounding landscape. But for now, we can walk a little closer and see what all these people and dogs are going to look at, which is, of course, Turtle Pond, that nice contrasting color. I love the blue that's reflecting off here. It's almost like the sky is just shining right back at us. But looking over that beautiful expansive view of Turtle Pond and the Great Lawn. And as we come over, we can see that island, of course, a lot more bare, being able to see birds sitting on it. Very different than when we think back to June of 2020, looking at the very green landscape. Can't see anything on that island. We're also noticing the water is even greener because during this time there was an algae bloom occurring. So we see the water being green, the grass, the trees, everything being green. But today, of course, we're going to have a little less color in terms of the trees and flora, but we're going to have a booming turtle pond. No algae bloom now, so we're getting that beautiful blue color blooming here. Certainly a beautiful day to walk around the park, the last remnants of snow hanging out here on the side, and certainly plenty of signs of spring approaching. Certainly a really wonderful time to walk around. I hope you enjoyed it because this does bring us to the end of our walk. If anybody does want to take the same route, feel free to screenshot this map and utilize it as on your own. But if you do want to explore the park in some different areas, we do have plenty of other different programs coming up. We have a really special behind the park tour today. For any of those interested in joining, this is going to be maintaining Central Park's expansive lawns, one of our behind the park tours. And there's actually a discount code that you can use as a public to get a discount for this tour. If you'd like to attend the behind the park, maintaining Central Park's expansive lawns, which is today at 3 p.m., you can check the chat box for a link to that. And you can use the code LAWN21. That's lowercase lawn, LAWN 21 for a discount of $5. Or if you're a member to the Central Park Conservancy, you can use your own member discount code to receive a discount for that tour today. There's also plenty of other things, like tomorrow I'll be leading, whoever would like to join us, on a Great Lawn Winter Tree Walk. The last, I believe, winter tree walk we're gonna have before we eventually move into our spring tree walk. And then last but not least, Tuesday, March 23rd at 3 p.m., we're gonna have another Crossing Central Park virtual tour. There's plenty of ways to stay involved though. We do have another, of course, weekly walk next Wednesday at 12:30. I'm going to be taking you through the South End with the Hallett Nature Sanctuary, the smallest of Central Park's woodlands and a really fun area to explore. But I want to thank everybody so much for joining us today. Of course, plenty of other tours coming up, like the Behind the Park today at 3 p.m. Using the code LAWN21 will get you $5 off. But if you check the chat boxes, you can find the links for those programs now. I am going to, of course, keep this open for a few minutes. So if there are any questions, hopefully we can answer those. But from all of us here at the Conservancy, thank you so much for joining us. Stay safe, be well, and we'll see you soon.